It's the Aries new moon eclipse. The message from the moon this week is stake your claim, claim all the growth that you've made in the last couple of years, and move forward from there. No going back. Okay? All right, I'm Laura Custo, and I am the moon phase astrologer, and this is Light the Way. Each week, I give you the message from the moon and show you how to use its light to plan your life and achieve your goals. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you never miss this weekly message from the moon. All right, this is the week, I'm checking my notes here, of March 28th through April 4th. Now, Friday the 28th, we are in this energy of the new moon eclipse that is happening on Saturday the 29th. So that's how you're starting your week going into the weekend. That eclipse, it's a solar eclipse. It happens at 4:48 Mountain Standard Time, just moments before the new moon, which is happening at 4:58 AM Mountain Standard Time. Now, a new moon eclipse, a solar eclipse, is when the moon crosses directly between the earth and the sun. The sun's light is eclipsed, so to speak, or blocked by the light of the moon. Now, this is a partial eclipse, which means only part of the sun's light is going to be blocked out. And it's viewable, as with all eclipses, they're not viewable across the entire planet. This particular eclipse will be most viewable from northeastern US, crossing into Europe and the northern parts of Europe and Russia. So eclipses, they really, what are they? They essentially are really, really powerful new moons or full moons. They're like new moons or full moons on steroids, okay? They are a time of sudden breakthroughs, shifts. It's a time when you may potentially be forced, like forcing your hand to look at something, and realize things and kind of deal with the things in life that maybe you've been avoiding. So also, at the same time, it is still a new moon. And so the new moon, even though it's an eclipse, they go together. It's a time of new beginnings, and it's a time to dream into what you want in the area of life that oversees Aries in your chart. So now, because this is the last eclipse that we're going to have in Aries for a while, right? That this has to do with the nodes. The nodes are moving into Pisces and Virgo. They're there right now. They're just so close to the border of Aries right now that it's happening in Aries. But essentially, this is the end of a 2-year cycle that started in April of 2023 when we had this first set of eclipses, first happening on the Aries Libra axis, as we call it. So there are a couple of dates that you actually want to look back to just to kind of see this doesn't have anything to do with the moon phases or the story that's unfolding. This is purely eclipse related, eclipses in Aries. And those dates would be the full moon eclipse that we had on September 29th, 2023. See what was going on there. That happened in Aries. And then also, I would say go back and look at the last quarter that we had, which was in Aries, and it was on the point of the eclipse here, and that's June 28th, 2024. So what you're going to be what you want to look for there is September 29th, 2023. What played out, what truth came to light. Okay. And then on June 28th, 2024, what you're looking for is, did you end something? Did you come to a conclusion about something? Did you clear space in your life for something? So those are some clues that you can look at just in terms of that whole, what have you grown through? What have you accomplished? All right. And this eclipse is like no going back. Okay. It's in Aries, and Aries really represents the strength of our individual self. Okay. The opposite sign of Aries is Libra, and that's partnerships, one on one. It's doing things with the other. Aries is the self. And so this is all focused on what have you accomplished? What is your hero's journey? And what are you learning from this and taking forward with you? Okay. So embrace this eclipse energy. This is how I would work with this. It's a new moon. It's a time to dream into new beginnings, but flow as much as you can with this eclipse energy and the potential for, sudden breakthroughs, things to be revealed, sudden realizations. Do that reflection upon those past 2 years, and move forward from there and infuse that into this new moon intention, because you're starting a whole new story here. It's a new moon, so we set our intentions, right? So, and again, this will be happening in the area of life that Aries represents for you. If you don't know which area of life Aries represents for you, that's where Moon Chat comes in. You can go on over to my website, lauracusto.com, click on Become a Moon Chat member. And when you join Moon Chat, you not only are spoon fed literally every moon phase, what like that the moon phase is happening, but you're also told the area of life that it activates for you and how to work with it. And I also have a wonderful journal that you can use to keep track of all of this and keep your notes so that you can reference these dates as they come up. All right. Then I also want to mention that as part of working with this eclipse energy on Saturday, the 29th, later on the 29th, right? This eclipse happens in the morning. It's pretty early all across the United States, even in Europe. We're talking like maybe pushing noon time zone, right? In Asia, it'll obviously be later in the day. But later in the 29th at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Mercury, which is retrograde and is backing up in the sky, it leaves Aries and it goes back into Pisces. And it promptly merges right up with Neptune. So we see this energy coming together of Mercury, our communication and analysis, and things that we're reviewing, right? Because Mercury is moving backwards in the sky. We're going over things and it's merging with Neptune. So, right there, later in the day on Saturday, this eclipse has happened. You're working with the energy. Saturday night is a really, really good time to just spend some time, if you can, journal, meditate on the themes that you're noticing popping up in your life, and just sort of ask for guidance and really trust that you will be given what you need when you need it. We have something happening the very next day with Neptune moving into Aries, and the theme around this is is this sovereignty with your ability to tap into your own intuition, right? To make that connection with on your own with the self, to not rely with others. And we'll get into that here in a second, but it's literally happening the very next day. So I want you to lean into all of that here on this new moon eclipse. Like these energies they're all kind of happening right on top of each other. So they're all very active. All right. The other thing I want to mention is that the dates for this new moon, as you look ahead, right? We're starting a whole new story in the area of life that Aries represents for you. So today, or Saturday the 29th, is the new moon. The next day you want to look ahead to where you will take action, right? I talk about this a lot. The new moon is telling the moon what you want, right? You're getting a message from the moon here on this eclipse, the moon's saying, hey, stake your claim. What have you learned in Aries? Okay, we're not going back. Stake your claim, set new intentions. And your answer should be, okay, great. I'm doing my work. I'm going to write these things down. These are my dreams. This is how I'm moving forward. You're telling the moon what you want, okay? On March 29th, 2025. Then moving ahead to when the first quarter will be right at the same point in the sky, that's going to be December 27th of this year, 2025. That's when you're going to take action on these. That's when you're going to show the moon what you want by committing to something. Okay. So let's say this falls in your area of your home and your intention is to sell your home. And so you're maybe for the next so many months until December, you're going to prepare your house for sale. You would target December 27th for about when you would want to list it. Okay. That's a great way to work with this energy. All right, then the next date that you want to keep in mind would be the full moon, which would be when these intentions would come to full bloom. And you would actually, in this case, let's say sell the house, or maybe it's move out. Okay. That day is September 26th, 2026. Okay. These are big phases, they're 9 months apart. We have 36 of them active in our life at every single point in time. Okay. I know 9 months may seem like a long time, but again, think about all the balls you sort of have in the air and all the different areas of life. Again, Moonshot keeps track of all of this for you. It's all based on the moon's very precise patterning. I studied this for, diligently for a couple of years, and that's why I have totally leaned into being an astrologer focused on the moon phases. Okay. All right. Also, I do want to mention that if you're still just kind of unsure about what are the moon phases, how do we work with them, I have something free for you, totally free. You can go on over to my website. It is a moon phase guide, and It gives you the three simple, practical steps that I take every single moon phase to work with it, right? There's a new moon, a first quarter, a full moon, and a last quarter. I have three steps for each. There's not a bunch of woo-woo rituals here. It's practical advice, and it literally is what I do on each of the moon phases. So I'll link that in the show notes. It's on my website, lauracusto.com, and that is the free moon phase guide. Okay? All right. I mentioned this. Neptune is entering Aries. So that happens again, this new moon solar eclipse is happening on Saturday the 29th. The next day on Sunday, around 6 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, Neptune enters Aries. Now, this is a huge deal, right? Neptune is way far out there. It takes 165 years to go around the sun. So it's been a hot minute since it's been in Aries, right? It spends about 14 years in each sign. So now here's the thing. Neptune's going in from Pisces into Aries. It's going to go retrograde in October and it's going to go back into Pisces for a little bit, okay? So we're going to get a little taste of it here now from March 30th until October 22nd. That's when it goes back into Pisces, but then it'll turn direct again. It'll move forward in the sky and it'll move into Aries for good January 26th, 2026, and it'll stay there until 2039, March 2039, right? So we're gonna get a really good amount of time here. Now, these are big shifts in the collective. They might take a little while to be fully embraced, but you can wrap your head around it. And I would say try, jump into this energy really quickly if it speaks to you, or aim to do that. Now, I personally have been researching this and I love, love, love what we're moving into. Okay. Neptune and Pisces, when you contrast it to Neptune and Aries, here's the thing. Neptune rules Pisces. So it loves being in Pisces. It's Pisces is a water sign and it flows but it kind of has no boundaries. And so it's sort of this like just throwing up all over you everywhere. It can be very dreamy if this energy is used in very high vibrational ways. But if it's not used that way, it can lead to addiction and reliance on others and playing the victim. Okay. Neptune moving into Aries is now so different. It's the start of the zodiac. It's the start of a new season, spring. That's what Aries represents here in the Northern Hemisphere. Even in the Southern Hemisphere, it's always the start of a new season, right? Start of fall. And it's new beginnings. It's a fire sign and it's the first fire sign. It wants to win. That's what Aries does. It wants to, be first, okay? And Aries represents the hero's journey. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. So, and it's about the self. Aries is the natural ruler of the first house. And so we're now, when you think about this, Neptune in Aries, and Neptune still has this. Neptune rules the hidden realm, the higher mind, transcendentalism, meditation. It also rules escapism. So, with Neptune and Aries here until 2039, the themes that we are having are taking accountability for oneself with respect to these themes. It is tapping into your intuition and your connection to the divine and trusting yourself and the messages that you are receiving. It is to, yeah, stop playing the victim, stop blaming others for any issues and problems that you may have around these themes in your life. It's taking full responsibility and being accountable for those addictions you may have and the problems that you may have. And knowing I should also say, like, yes, I realize that some addictions require help, and that's totally, totally healthy. At the same time, what this then points to is you then decide, oh, yes, it's time for me to get help. It's time for me to fix this problem. And you just take more ownership in the fact that it is your problem and it's yours to solve. And you really start to heal your relationship with these themes, right? We're divine. We are divine beings, and we all have the ability to create that connection with the divine. And so over these next, gosh, it'll be to what, 14 years. These next 14 years, we'll have lots of time to work on these themes in our life and hopefully become stronger individuals. And whenever we are stronger as individuals, we create a stronger collective. I just think it's so, so beautiful. So that is on the 30th. Okay. So as I look at the rest of the week and we're moving through 30th, 31st, I really see those days as you're still in this energy of this new moon eclipse. It is time to use that energy. So think about things, journal on things, use this energy, knowing now too, Neptune is in Aries. So like, have that as you sit down, like, oh, Neptune's in Aries. Cool. Like I can connect. I can connect. I've got Neptune on my side here. This is great. All right, then moving into Tuesday the 1st, the moon will start to go from being so dark, right? And so in that alignment between the sun and the earth, but we'll start to see a sliver of it. And I always say, as we start to see that sliver of it, as the moon becomes physical again, that's when you're going to want to put pen onto paper, okay? Physical pen to paper and write your intentions. We always put pen to paper because we want to engage our subconscious mind, okay? So again, go get that moon phase guide. I'll walk you through more of why we want to do that. Okay. Then we move into, here we go, my notes. Wednesday the 2nd, we start to get in the energy of the first quarter in Cancer that is happening on Friday the 4th. Now, on Wednesday the 2nd, we have a kind of a flash in the pan moment of Venus conjoining the North Node. Now, again, I call this a flash in the pan moment because Venus moves fairly quickly. Okay, we'll get about a day where this is like really active. But Venus represents pleasure. It represents the feminine, what we value. It represents loving relationships, as well as relationships with other women and our relationship to the feminine. And so this is this merging of those themes with the North Node, which is our highest good. Okay, so it is a great day to have conversations with your girlfriends, to have a conversation with your partner. It's a great day to just simply appreciate something that you love and imagine that appreciation and gratitude and pleasure really guiding you towards the highest expression of who you can be in this lifetime. So that is Wednesday, February, or sorry, March. Wow. Wednesday, April 2nd. Okay. Then on Thursday, we're still in this energy of the building first quarter. Finally, on Friday, we have our first quarter in Cancer. Now, I'm going to give you a little preview of this because it is included, and I realize that these episodes drop on Fridays, and we're literally having this first quarter on Friday. Okay, it happens a little later in the day, but Friday the 4th. Here's a preview of what's happening. So first quarters, again, are this time, it's this time to show the moon what you want by making a commitment to your goals that you have set in that Cancer area of life. But the planetary energies going on are just so wonderfully supportive of taking action. Really, when I looked at these planetary energies, the message I got was it is a day to shift something. That's really what it is. We have this very positive dance happening between Mars, Saturn, and Uranus. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. We had a day like this recently in the last couple of months. I don't remember the exact date, but it was a similar dynamic where these three planets made harmonious aspects to one another all within the same day. And that's happening again. And so here's what's happening. At 10:20 in the morning on April 4th, Saturn sextiles Uranus. So this is an opportunity to shift something around these types of combinations. I'll give them to you here. Authority versus freedom, doing something planned and responsible versus something unexpected, or doing something responsible versus something irresponsible, like what others perceive to be irresponsible, right? So Saturn represents responsibility, it represents plans, it represents authority, it's the way things should, quote unquote, be done. It is top-down control. We have to work with Saturn. Saturn teaches us our lessons, but again, it's very regimented. It's like it's the should planet. You should do this, right? It's what society tells you to do, kind of. But it also is responsibility. So it's a balance, right? Uranus is the planet of unexpected surprises, sudden breakthroughs. It's quantum leaps. It's jumping into the next realm. It's moving forward, progression. So these two are very different energies. And so what's happening at that moment is that you're going to be given an opportunity. It's not going to happen for you. You're going to have to choose to take the opportunity, but to do something unexpected that others may look at like, whoa, I didn't see that coming, or or maybe something unexpected is sitting in front of you and you sort of unexpectedly take the responsible route, right? But I think it's a sign of you doing something sort of out of character. Then later in the day, Mars enters the picture and it creates a sextile with Uranus, giving you the support to choose. Again, a sextile is not something that flows naturally. It's sort of, here's an opportunity. Do you want to take it? All right. But Mars is giving you kind of like it's Mars's aggression and taking action. And so it's on a first quarter moon when you are being called to take action, right? So that's that help to take the action, to do that thing that is unexpected. And then finally, a couple hours later, around 7 o'clock Mountain Standard Time PM on Friday the 4th, Mars makes a trine to Saturn. So it's now we have Saturn Uranus interacting, then we have Mars Uranus to make it happen, and now we have Mars Saturn, and this is a trine. And trines just happen. They just flow. So what that tells me is that then something happens that you don't really need to do anything. It just kind of naturally occurs, or maybe you need to participate just a little bit, but it's very natural for you to sort of like, here, this is why it is actually responsible, and here's why it works. And so again, it's this sort of flow of like, ooh, I'm going to do something crazy, quote unquote, and I'm going to take the action, but then in the end, everything makes sense. And everybody kind of is like, oh, I get what you're doing now. Okay. So, and I love that it's happening on a first quarter, right? Because it is the day where you're going to look at the story that's unfolding. You're going to be reminded of those intentions you set and take that action to show the moon what you want, right? Now, here on that first quarter. All right, so just a recap there on the week. Again, the big message is claim your progress, okay? Look back, claim your progress. Don't go back. Let's set some new intentions for your new dreams based on all you've achieved and overcome and where you are today. That's what this new moon eclipse in Aries is all about. All right, and now I want to address a common question that I get, which is, what is the difference between a regular old new moon and an eclipse, a new moon eclipse, right? It's an amazing question. So I want to tell you, first of all, with this, it's much more easy to understand if you understand up in the sky what is happening, okay? So first, we need to address the fact that the Earth revolves around the sun, and then the moon revolves around the Earth, right? So we've got big object in the middle of the sun, Earth's going around it, and then we have a relative to all of that, a tiny object, the moon, going around the Earth. Now, the path that the Earth takes is called the ecliptic, okay? And as the moon goes around the Earth, it has a path that it follows as well. However, it's at a different angle. And so I want to kind of visualize this. I want to walk you through sort of a scenario. So imagine that there is a ball hanging from the ceiling, and it is hanging 5 feet below the ceiling. Okay, it's just sitting there on a string. It's not moving at all. That's the sun. Okay. The Earth orbits around the sun at a steady 5 feet all the way around, never changes, stays at 5 feet constantly, constantly, constantly. Okay, then as we, the Earth, are moving around the sun, again, the moon is orbiting around us. Now, however, it is not orbiting at 5 feet below the ceiling. Its orbit is tilted. It kind of goes at an angle. So as it goes around us, sometimes it's all the way down to 6 feet below the ceiling, and sometimes it goes up to 4 feet. Okay. So it oscillates between that 6 feet below the ceiling and 4 feet below the ceiling. Meanwhile, again, the Earth and the sun are always 5. Okay. So now that we've acknowledged that, here's the other thing. As the moon is orbiting around us, sometimes the moon gets between us and the sun, and sometimes we, the Earth, are between the sun and the moon. Now, when the moon is between the sun and the Earth directly, that is a new moon. Now, the moment where the moon is directly between the sun and the Earth, like literally you could draw a straight line, and the moon is also at 5 feet, that's an eclipse point. But most new moons, the moon is at the 6 feet or the 4, or it's at, say, 5 feet, 8 inches, or 4 feet, 6 inches, right? But when they directly all line up, and the moon is right in the middle of the sun and the earth, that's when we get the eclipse. Now, when they line up, but the moon is at, say, that 4 foot or the 6 foot, we just get a regular new moon. Okay. And really, what if you could stand on Earth and see the sun and the moon at the same time, you can't see the moon at a new moon because the sun is shining its light towards the moon and towards us, but because the moon is directly in between us and the sun's light is shining on the side of the moon that we can't see, that we see just the dark side of the moon. But if you could look up, and there's apps where you can do this, if you could look up in the sky at a new moon, all you need to do is look towards the sun and point that app up there and then start looking around and trying to find the moon. And what it is that the moon will be higher or lower than the sun. Okay. But at the solar eclipse, again, the moon crosses over directly in front of the sun. And that's where we get that phenomenon where we see this ring of fire. The moon completely eclipses the light of the sun. And that's where you see people wearing those fancy blockout glasses so they can actually look at the sun and see how the moon's passing over it, right? Okay, so now, and it's worth mentioning that there are also partial solar eclipses too. And that would be when the moon isn't exactly at the 5 foot mark. Remember, I'm using that analogy, like we're all 5 feet below, but maybe the moon is at, say, 5 feet 2 inches. It's not quite exact. Or maybe it's at 4 feet 8 inches, but it's gonna block out part of the sun, but maybe not quite all of it. Okay. All right, so I hope that helps you visualize what's happening and what's the difference between just a regular new moon and a eclipse. So now, what does it mean? Okay, what does the energy mean? All right, well, let's start with the plain old new moons and not eclipses. So, astrologers have been studying the energetics behind them for centuries, and they've really noticed that it's a time to reset. It's kind of like the moon is going dark, it's wiping the slate clean, and we're being called to do the same. So, it is a time to go within, to get quiet, and get so quiet that you can listen to your own thoughts and you can hear your own inner knowing and really connect to your feelings and lean into what is true for you, right? And then that's where we get into dream and set new intentions, okay? Now, as we talk about the solar eclipse, so the new moon solar eclipse, this is again what we were just talking about, where the moon eclipses the solar light of the sun. Okay, well, according to astrologer, I have a quote here. According to astrologer Kyle Thomas, back in the ancient times, the solar eclipse was thought of as the eye of an angry god. Okay, but as we have evolved, we've come to see that the new moon eclipse is, again, in its simplest terms, just a really powerful new moon. It's a new moon on steroids. But if we delve into it a little bit more, it is a time when we can experience rapid change, rapid growth, a sudden breakthrough. What an eclipse will do is the energy of it can often make you feel like you're in crisis mode. And if you work with the energy positively, you're going to see, you're going to have this, like a sudden breakthrough again. And here's the thing, eclipses come in pairs. So even though we're talking about the solar eclipse here, either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after, we're going to have a lunar eclipse, which is more of an energy around endings and sudden realizations and making big decisions. The new moon solar eclipse is more of a big sudden breakthrough that propels you forward in the direction that you need to go. Okay. But because they come in pairs, and again, the lunar eclipse is the one that, again, it's forcing that sort of ending that creates the space or creates the opportunity for that new beginning. They do happen in direct opposite signs in the sky, right? So they're not related in that sense, but if you think about the houses and how the houses really do work in pairs. For example, your first house, the house that's opposite it is your seventh house. And the first house is the self, the seventh house is relationships. So you could have something, say, happen on the full moon related to your relationship that creates a new opportunity for you as an individual. Another example, second house and eighth house. Second house is your resources, your and what you value, your money, your time, and your resources and your skills, your things. The eighth house is others' resources. And so again, you could have something happen with, say, second house that could require a shift in the eighth house or vice versa. All right. Another pair, fourth house and 10th house. The fourth house is home and the 10th house is career. So those dynamics working together. All right. So those pairs are active at the eclipses because they almost always occur in opposite signs. Sometimes they don't. This particular one we're having here on March 27th, 2025, the lunar eclipse that we just had was in Virgo, and the pair would be Pisces, but it's actually still happening in Aries. So they're a little off there. But again, there are always patterns and things that we can look to. All right, and here's the other thing about eclipses, though. Again, it comes with these sudden breakthroughs. If you're on the right path, you're going to be shown that. You're going to experience something that tells you that, perhaps a major win, a sudden breakthrough, just rewarded with it, right? Something that you would consider a win. And if you're not on the right path, things are going to get harder, or you're going to perhaps experience some sort of a loss or a challenge. All right. Now, and again, this will always be falling in a specific area of life based on your unique chart. And so if you'd like to know which area of life, so you can work with these eclipse energies a little more intelligently, have some clues, rather than kind of thinking about your whole life in general, that's where Moon Chat comes in. So I'll link to the show notes there, but that's my subscription service where every single moon phase you get an email sent to you that is customized based on your astrology chart. So I tell you not just what phase we're in and how to work with the energy, but what area of life it's activating for you. All right. Finally, the last thing I want to mention about eclipses is that it's considered to be a season every time we have an eclipse. So again, I mentioned that they come in pairs about 2 weeks apart. So 1 month before the first eclipse, on into 1 month after the second eclipse, that is all considered eclipse season. So let's say we have a full moon eclipse and 2 weeks later we get the solar. So a month before that full moon eclipse and then 1 month after the solar eclipse is the season where this energy is the most powerful. So you can be working with all of it. And again, we're talking about a solar eclipse here, but the lunar eclipse is going to be active at the same time. And so you have about 2 months and 2 weeks, give or take, to work with these eclipse energies. And they happen a couple of times a year, about 6 months apart. All right, I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this, please leave a review or drop a thumbs up depending on where you're listening. And if this was helpful for you and you think somebody else would benefit from it, please click the share button. All right, working with these messages from the moon in their divine timing and patterning has been so eye-opening for me, and it has totally changed my life. That's why, as an astrologer, I have made the moon phases my focus. All right, with that, have a great week. I'm sending you lots of good energy as you work with this final new moon eclipse in Aries. Stake your claim, remember, stake it. There's no going back. Don't let yourself be pulled back. Dream big and set bold new goals. Until next Friday, take care.